Hi everyone, it's Phil Frost from Main Street ROI, and I want to welcome you today to the 5 steps to get your business ranking on the first page of Google. And I want to thank LikeableLocal for organizing this live training today. I see a question came in from Ellen. Is there audio yet? There is now, so we got that all cleared up. All right, let me dive in here. You should see my screen change to the slide housekeeping. If you do not, let me know. I want to urge everyone to post questions to the questions box. I see Ellen already figured out where that box is. It should be in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. You can post questions into that box, click send. I'll see those on my screen, and I'll address those as they come in. I always recommend you turn off distractions. You'll get the most out of these trainings if you're not also scrolling through email and your Facebook feed. And then before I get started, I want to see who's on today. So I put together a couple polls. And the first one here is, are you currently working with an SEO agency? The answer is yes, no, and then the third answer is we are an agency or I am a consultant. I find when we do these trainings, we always get several agencies and consultants on the line. I see that's the case today. All right, looks like most people have voted. And I'll just tell you here, it's 13% yes, 70% no, and then 17% agencies or consultants. So let me close that out. And then wanted to get a sense for the size of your SEO campaigns so that you can see on your screen what is your current or anticipated monthly SEO budget for 2017. I see some folks are saying less than 500, and then you can see the other options there. Typically, the vast majority are less than 500, but there I've got 4% over 3,000, 4% 2 to 3,000, also 4% 1 to 2, 8%, roughly 8%, 500 to 1,000, and then the remaining about 80% less than 500. And the last poll here is to see just what are the other marketing channels you're currently using. I have to imagine everyone on the line today will be selecting social media. Somebody selected other, and if you do select other, please type in to the questions box what it is you are using. Just always curious to see what businesses are doing as far as marketing channels. Rob said, I only have a website, that's it. All right. Melanie said blogs. Okay. That is a great tactic. All right, so most people have voted here, about 29% advertising, 55% Facebook ads, 70% email marketing, which is great to see. Highly recommend, basically every business should be using email marketing. As I suspected, high percentage using social media. We've got 81%, and then 13% other. Let me close that out. And I appreciate everyone answering those questions. All right, here's what we're going to cover today. I want to walk through some important Google updates that I believe everyone should be familiar with. If you want to be successful with SEO, you do need to get a quick history lesson of Google just to see where it has been as far as the algorithm updates and why they made those updates. I'm also going to talk about 3 old school tactics you want to avoid. These are tactics that used to work. In fact, a lot of agencies and consultants would recommend these tactics. They would get your website to rank high, but now, because of the Google updates, they will actually get you into trouble. I'll talk about 2 tactics you can use to get ranked in as little as 30 days. SEO is typically thought of as more of a long-term strategy, and generally speaking, that is the case. But there are some tactics you can use to get some quick results. And I'll walk through the 5 rules or the 5 steps you need to follow. And then at the end, I have a special offer for all the attendees to help you get started today. Now, if you've never been on a Main Street ROI presentation, you're probably wondering, who am I? Why should you listen to me? Well, again, my name is Phil Frost. I'm the founder of Main Street ROI, and our business provides digital marketing services like search engine optimization, Google ads, Facebook ads, Bing ads, setup and management, as well as email marketing. And we also help with social media. And we also, in addition to providing services, we provide a lot of training. So today we're doing a free training. We also publish a lot of free articles on our blog, and we send those via our email newsletter. And then we provide more in-depth training, some paid training courses that you can purchase on our site at mainstreetroi.com/training. And to date, we've helped over 2,000 businesses with their digital marketing, and my thought leadership has been featured in Forbes, Inc., Amex, as well as Mashable. And this is my favorite slide of the training today. That's my daughter, Violet, on the left. She's 4.5 years old. She'll be quick to tell you she's 4.5. She's not 4. That's my chubby son, Emmett, on the right, who's just over 2 years old. He's getting hard to carry. That's my beautiful wife, Erin, in the middle. And this picture was taken actually at my son's 2-year birthday party on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. All right, so I mentioned I'm going to give you a brief history lesson of Google, and this is really important to understand if you want to be successful with SEO. So way back in the day, and some of the older folks will remember this, there was a search engine called Alta Vista, and back then SEO was super easy because the way the algorithm would work is it would just look at the words on your page, on your website, and if you had the particular word that you wanted to rank for, if you had that on your page more times than your competitors, then you were likely to be ranked high in the search results. So it's basically the algorithm would look at your web page. If someone searched for, let's say, day spa, they would look to see how many times day spa is on your page. If you had it more often than other people, then your page would rank high. So SEO was very easy, but it also meant that the search results were full of spam. So if you, again, are older, you may remember these days where you would just do a regular search and you'd get completely irrelevant search results. And a lot of times you could do searches and porn sites would even show up for completely unrelated searches. So it was a big problem for search engines, and that's just because it was a very simple algorithm. But then Google entered the market, and this was back around 1998, and they came with a pretty ingenious twist to the algorithm. So they do look at the words on your website, but they also look at how many other websites are linking to your website. And when I say a link online, if you see words with an underline and you can click on it and then that goes to your site, that's a link. And if you have a lot of links from other websites to your website, those are kind of like votes in your favor. And when you think about it, on your own website, if you link to someone else's website, that's because you are recommending that site to your audience. So that is a great signal that Google can use, and that's really the core of their algorithm. Is they're looking at the quantity and quality of links to your website. And because of that little twist to the algorithm, Google's results were not full of spam, and they became the #1 search engine and really haven't looked back since. And here's a key takeaway that I hope everyone remembers. Google depends on search ad revenue. So the majority of Google's revenue actually is coming from people going to Google, doing searches, and then clicking on the ads at the top of the search results. So when you do a Google search, you'll see that the first 3 to 4 results say ad to the left of the result. They have a little symbol there that says ad. Those are Google AdWords advertisers. They are paying to be on the first page of Google and to be front and center. And people do, in fact, click on those links. And when people click, those advertisers pay Google. And that's how Google makes a lot of their money. So when you think about it from Google's perspective, a lot of their money is coming from people searching, knowing Google, searching, and then clicking on ads. So their business depends on people coming back to Google to do searches. And people come back to Google to do searches because the search results are generally pretty good and people can find what they're looking for. So anytime a website is showing up on the first page of Google that really does not belong there, that is essentially a threat to Google's business model, because that would give the user or that searcher a bad experience, and they're less likely to come back to Google and less likely to click ads, which would then hurt Google's revenue. That's a big takeaway there. So that's why, sorry, last point here, that's why Google, you probably already know this, they hire just some of the smartest people in the world to come work for their company, and some of the smartest engineers will go to Google and work on their algorithm to make sure it is the best it can possibly be, and to make sure that they're getting rid of any websites that really don't belong on the first page. And with that in mind, over the years, Google has released a lot of algorithm updates or Google updates, and if you've been following SEO for a while, you'll definitely recognize these. The one important one here is Panda. So each one of these updates just has a code name, I guess you can call it, and this one was code named Panda for whatever reason. It's not really relevant to the animal, but they called it the Panda update. And what this update was targeting, so over time, Google found that sites were ranking high in the search results that really didn't belong, and they were really poorly written, so it was really bad content, and a lot of these sites also had poor navigation, so they were hard to use. There was bad usability, and the Panda update was really targeting those sites. So if you had website content on your site that was poorly written, that you could easily be hit by this Panda update and lose a lot of your rankings. This next update was codenamed Penguin Update, and this was targeting what we call over-optimized websites, and this is related to the point I made before, that the core of Google's algorithm is looking at how many links your website has. And what happened was businesses took that to the extreme, and they started to build blogs for the sole purpose of linking to their own websites. And these are blog networks. These are linking schemes, lots of different names. But basically, they're links that are not natural. These are basically fake websites for the sole purpose of linking to your website to boost your rankings. So a lot of businesses went to that extreme in order to try to rank high. In fact, that worked well, but then Google figured out what was going on. And again, that's a threat to their business model. So they decided to release this Penguin update, which looked for websites that were getting links from these blog networks and removed them from the first page of Google. All right, the third update that I think is important is Google+. It's definitely not a thriving social network, but this was Google's answer to Facebook. Facebook is the social media giant. Google realized that, so they quickly launched Google+, and it basically failed. But then more recently, they relaunched Google+. And I think that is a pretty important signal for all of us to realize the importance of social media. The fact that Google's reinvesting there, to me, says, hey, they're trying to leverage social media data, and I think in the future they will start using more social media data to determine what should rank high in their search results. The last update I want to touch on here, and that'll be the end of the Google history lesson, is the Hummingbird update. Again, that's just a code name, and what that update was, it was actually a complete overhaul of Google's algorithm. They basically rewrote the algorithm, and this was so that Google would understand context and synonyms. The example I always use is if you're walking down the street and you're hungry and you're in a new city, maybe you're just touring, you might type into Google, or you might even just talk into Google and say, best places to eat. And to you and I, to anyone, that's a very easy question to answer. You know, you're looking for the best place to eat. I'd start rattling off some nearby restaurants. But to actually answer that question, you have, as a computer, it's pretty complicated. You have to understand context. You have to know where you're actually located, and you have to translate best places to eat. You have to translate that to really be a search for nearby restaurants. So it sounds very simple to you and I, but for a computer program, that's pretty complicated. And Google figured out how to do that with their algorithm, and now they do understand context and synonyms. And that's very important because of the rise of mobile and people searching on their mobile phones. All right, so now that you understand that quick history lesson, I want to talk about some old school tactics that, again, these used to work, but now you really want to avoid them because they will get you into trouble. And the first one here is over-optimized web pages. And I already mentioned the Panda update was really targeting poorly written content, and that can happen when you're just writing pages for Google, and that's ultimately what businesses were doing back in the day to try to rank high. They weren't really thinking of the user or their prospective customers. They were thinking of Google, and they were just cranking out some pretty poorly written pages. So instead, you want to approach this by, first of all, writing naturally, and highly recommend you focus on your prospective customer. You don't write the pages of your site with Google in mind. You think about your prospective customers and actually use sales copy best practices to make sure you're generating leads and sales from the copy on your site. You definitely don't want to do what's called keyword stuffing. In fact, you don't even really want to worry about the keyword when you're writing the content of your page. I will get to where you do need to put the keywords later on in the presentation, but right now I'm just talking about the body copy, so what people are reading on your page. You don't really want to be worried about the keyword. And then ultimately it comes down to providing valuable information and answering the questions that people are asking when they go to Google. So second old school tactic is related to that Penguin update, and you don't want to be building links via a lot of self-created links. You also don't want to buy links. If Google finds out that you exchanged money for a link to your site, Google will actually devalue that link, so it won't even help you rank higher in the search results. So it's not worth it to go out and try to buy links. You also don't want to add links from irrelevant sites. So if you are in, let's say, the jewelry industry, and you have an e-commerce site, you're selling jewelry, probably doesn't make sense for you to have links from car dealership websites, even if you know someone who has a car dealership website and they'll gladly put a link to your site on there. That's probably not a good idea. That's a red flag to Google. That's probably not a natural link, and that could get you into trouble. Next key point here with links is this concept of anchor text. And I give an example here. You can see in blue font, it's underlined, it says day spa. Most people realize you can click on that and that would send you to the website. So that phrase, day spa, is what's called anchor text. It's the anchor text for the link. Google looks at the anchor text, and if you have lots of links to your site that say day spa, that's obviously a good signal for Google to realize that that particular page is most likely relevant for that keyword, day spa. So Google does use anchor text to see if you're relevant for a particular keyword. But what happens is businesses actually can take that to the extreme. And what some businesses did was they went out and created hundreds, even thousands of links to their site with the exact same anchor text. So if you wanted to rank for somebody searching day spa, you might think it's a good idea to go out and get thousands of links that say day spa. Well, back in the day, that actually would work. But since the Penguin update, that would more than likely get you into trouble because it looks very unnatural. Most websites will use different variations of anchor text. It's not very likely you'd have the exact same phrase across, dozens, hundreds, or thousands of sites. So Google knows that, and if all of your anchor text is the same, then that's going to most likely get you into trouble. And then finally, when it comes to getting links to your site, you really want to focus more on sharing content on your site that people would want to link to. That's really the name of the game, is just really high quality content. I'm sure you've heard this before. Content is king. That has always been the case. And it is certainly still the case that you need to have just really good information, good content that people would want to share, let's say on social media, and would want to link to and reference that on their site. All right, the last SEO tactic that I want you to avoid here is unnecessary SEO web pages. And I put that in quotes because a lot of people that I talk to still, So I still hear a lot of businesses think they need to create these, quote, SEO web pages. And a SEO web page is really an old school tactic to try to target lots of variations of essentially the same keyword. And I have the example here, just sticking with the day spa theme. There's two different keywords, day spa in NYC, and then the other keyword here is NYC day spa. And back in the day, it would actually make sense to create two separate pages and try to optimize it for the two different variations. But now Google, as you know, understands synonyms, they understand context, and the reality is someone that searches day spa in NYC and someone else that searches NYC day spa, both of those people are looking for the exact same thing. Google knows that, and there should really just be one page on your site that targets both of those variations. So you don't want to create multiple pages for very similar keywords. Ultimately, that will lead to lower quality pages. You'll be typically what it leads to is a lot of duplicate content on your site. So instead, you want to create one page on your site for very similar keyword phrases. And I wanted to show you an example of what can happen if you don't follow those instructions. This is an example from a client when we just started working with them. It was like a week or two after we started, and they had set up a lot of pages on their site that were basically copies of basically duplicated pages. And they were trying to target lots of other keywords with the exact same content. And what happened was Google sent this message. It says Google has detected thin content on your site that provides little or no added value. And that's really the key there, is when you're trying to create a lot of different, quote, SEO pages for very similar searches, what tends to happen is that's going to be very low quality content, or what they call thin content. And Google does not want that, because again, low quality content in their search results is really a threat to their business model that could reduce their revenue. So they will send this message, and then you'll have to obviously clean up your site to get it back into the search results. All right, before we get to the 5 steps, I want to go through a couple of predictions here. The first one is very safe. I can safely guarantee that Google will continue to fight SEO spam. That's an ongoing fight for them to protect their revenue. They're going to continue to weed out businesses trying to do keyword stuffing, businesses trying to get unnatural links to their site, and businesses creating a lot of unnecessary pages for similar keywords. So that's definitely a given. Another safe prediction here is mobile and local signals are rising in importance. What's going to happen in the near future is Google's actually going to switch to what's called a mobile first index. And what that means is Google's going to look at the mobile version of your website before they look at your desktop version. They're basically going to make decisions about how high you should rank in the search results using your mobile version of your site. And when I got started back in 2006, that was definitely not the case. All you had to worry about was the desktop version of your site. And it's pretty crazy how now Google's considering and planning on switching to a mobile first index, and how a lot of web development and design firms are creating sites with the mobile version of the site as the primary website, and then desktop is basically secondary. And the third prediction, which would certainly we could argue for weeks about this, but I believe social signals will become more important. And I guess I don't need to argue with everyone on the line today. I think most people are already investing in social media, which is great. And by doing that, I do believe over the long term that will strengthen your SEO. And a key takeaway I do want everyone to get from this presentation is that SEO is not about tricking Google. I talk to a lot of businesses that think SEO, they have the mindset that it's all about tricking Google, that you know, you do all these kind of fancy things to your site to then make it magically show up on the first page. And it's definitely not magic. We're definitely not trying to trick Google. We're actually trying to partner with Google because, again, put yourself in Google's shoes. They're trying to make the most money. They want to give the best experience to the people searching. So they want the websites that have the best information, that answer the questions that the people are searching, and also have a really good user experience on the site, and that gets into some of the more technical aspects of SEO, which gets into kind of user experience and usability on the site. All right, now let's dive in to the 5 steps. And I call these the 5 R's to help you remember them. And the first R is research. And more specifically, we're talking about keyword research. And with anything related to search, it all starts with keyword research. And I recommend you use the free tool out there, which is Google's Keyword Planner tool. If you go to Google and just search Keyword Planner tool, it should be the first result at the top of the page. and you'll need to have a Google account to use it. And you'll actually now need to have a Google AdWords account. This is a fairly new change that Google made. They are forcing everyone to get a Google AdWords account in order to use the Google Keyword Planner tool. With that said, don't get freaked out. You don't have to advertise. You don't have to spend any money in Google AdWords. You just need to set up your account, and then just make sure you don't enable any ads, and then you won't spend any money, and then you can jump over to the Keyword Planner tool. And the other important note, another recent change, I don't know why they did this, but if you're not spending money in Google AdWords, and there is a threshold, if you're not spending enough money in Google AdWords, then Google, instead of showing you how many times a keyword is searched, they'll show you a range. So it might say 100 to 200, or 500 to 1,000, or 0 to 10. So you get the idea. They'll show you a range rather than showing you the exact number, which might be 500 or 700. So this tool, when you type in what you think people are searching, will show you how many times people are in fact searching that keyword each month. And it will also show you additional phrases that are related to the keywords that you put into the tool. So it's kind of like a thesaurus. You put in what you think people are searching, and then Google will give you additional ideas. And it's an iterative process where you just keep combing through that list, keep adding more and more keywords to your keyword list. And you obviously want to focus on keywords that are getting search volume, and those are the keywords that have a number greater than 0. If Google's saying that it has a search volume of 0, not a lot of people are searching for that keyword. So you obviously want keywords that have more search volume, but more importantly, you want to focus on keywords that have what's called buying intent. This is a really critical concept. There are two types of keywords. There are research intent keywords and buying intent keywords. And they're pretty self-explanatory. If someone is searching a research intent keyword, they're doing research. They're not really looking to make a purchase. And if they're doing a buying intent keyword, they're looking to make a purchase. So that's the distinction. And I have an example here. I have two keywords, day spa in NYC versus best facial for acne. And hopefully that makes it clear, and you can tell which one has buying intent and which one has research intent. And it's not always clear cut. It's basically a spectrum. But if you look at those keywords, day spa in NYC is further on the buying intent spectrum, and then best facial for acne is further on the research intent spectrum. There are certainly going to be a small percentage of people searching best facial for acne would in fact want to schedule an appointment for a day spa, but that's going to be most likely a smaller percentage than people just doing research, versus day spa in NYC. Vast majority of those searches are people actually looking to schedule an appointment with a day spa. And the last criteria here is just to answer this as honestly as you can. Do you deserve to be number one? So do you actually offer the information that that person is searching for, or do you offer that product or that service? And if you don't, or if your website doesn't have a page that would have that information or that product or service, then either you are not going to be able to rank for that keyword, or you need to build a page that would be appropriate and Google would want to rank for that particular keyword. All right, so that's keyword research. Goal there again is to find all of the buying intent keywords related to your product your products and your services. Step 2 is relevance. And more specifically, we're talking about website relevance. We want to make your website relevant to the keywords that you're trying to rank for. This is really marketing 101, matching the message to what the market is searching. And I mentioned this earlier about how you want to pick one page on your site for a group of very similar keywords. So after you do your keyword research, you do want to go through that list and group them together based on similar phrases and similar intent. And then based on that, you'll want to make sure that you have a page on your site that you can optimize for that group of keywords. And if you don't, you need to create a new page. And then what does it mean to optimize? I mentioned earlier I'd get to the important elements on your page. And the important elements, most importantly, are the title of the page or the title tag. And in parentheses, you can see the HTML code there with the less than sign, title, greater than sign. If you're not familiar with HTML, don't worry about it. Any web developer can edit the titles of your pages. It's very straightforward. But just know that the title of the page is one of the most important elements that Google looks at. It's the analogy I like to use is chapters in a textbook. So if you remember in school, you would open up a textbook, go to the table of contents, and skim through the table of contents to find the section of the book that you need to look in to find the answer to your question. Well, the table of contents is basically listing you can think of it as listing the titles of the pages on your site. So if your site was a book, then the table of contents would list all of the titles of the pages. And then that's a good analogy because Google kind of uses the titles in a similar fashion. When they go to your site, it's a nice shortcut for them to just look at the title and determine, are you relevant for what the person is searching in Google? So with that in mind, you obviously want to have your target keyword in the title of your page. So whatever it is you're trying to optimize for, whatever that keyword phrase is, you want to make sure that is in the title of your page. And then the other key elements are the headers. And in HTML, that's the H1, H2, H3. If you remember writing papers in school, you probably had different sections of the paper. So you'd have kind of the title of the paper, and then you might break it up into, let's say, executive summary and kind of introduction and all these different sections. Those are headers, and a lot of websites use headers to break up the content on the page, make it easier to read, and it also makes it easier to skim. And that's kind of how Google uses them as well. If Google was to skim your page, again, they would look at the title to see how relevant you are, and then they might skim through the headers to again determine how relevant that page is to what the person is searching for. So headers are a very important part of the page for SEO purposes, and you want to put your target keyword in the headers of your page. And ideally, you want to switch it up a little bit. So don't use the exact same phrase for your title as well as all of the headers. That wouldn't look very natural. It would basically look pretty spammy. And Google knows that, and their algorithm is designed to spot any type of low quality content or spammy looking content. So you really want it to look natural. Use one variation of a keyword in the title, and then use different variations of different phrases for your headers. And lastly is your body copy. And I mentioned earlier that you really don't want to worry about the keyword when you're writing the copy of the page. And that is definitely true. And the reason that's true is because if you do this correctly and you pick one page on your site to optimize for a particular keyword phrase, then you are definitely going to use that phrase without even thinking about it when you write the body copy. It's going to happen naturally. So don't worry about it. Don't try to force it. Instead, write the copy of your page from a sales copy perspective, and that will give you the best results. So really just focus more on getting the keyword into the title and the headers, and then write naturally for the body copy. And here's the golden rule of relevance. I recommend you create a page that you would actually want to find if you were the one searching for that keyword. In other words, put yourself in your prospect's shoes and think about, what would you actually want to find if you were doing that search in Google. And you can take that a step further. You can actually do that search in Google and then look at who's ranking, and then see how could you make a better page than what's already ranking. And that's a great tactic to basically go through the top 10 results, see what is ranking, and then how could you improve on that to make a better page. All right, third step. At this point, you've done your keyword research. You've made your web pages relevant for your target keywords. That basically gets you in the running to rank. But if you do a Google search, you'll find there are likely thousands or even millions of other pages that Google knows are relevant for that particular keyword. So how do you rank higher than the millions of other relevant pages? And the answer is your reputation. And your online reputation is also known as your domain authority. So if you do research in SEO, you'll definitely come across this term, domain authority, which is basically your online reputation. And the number one factor in your domain authority is the quantity and quality of links to your site. And it's basically reputation by association. It's very similar to the reputation you have in the real world. If you think about it, let's say you meet someone new and they're hanging out with other people you know, like, and trust, and other people that have good reputations. You're naturally going to assume, hey, this other person that you're just meeting also has a good reputation. On the flip side, if you're meeting someone new and they're hanging out with people that you don't like, you don't trust, and you actually know are pretty shady people, you're likely going to assume that this new person you're meeting is probably another shady person. And that same thing is happening online. That's how Google works. They're looking at the websites that are linking to your website, and if other legitimate websites with strong domain authority, good reputations, are linking to your website, that's going to rub off on your website. And Google's going to start to think that you have a good reputation as well. On the flip side, if you're getting links from sketchy, low-quality websites, then that's going to bring down your reputation. And ultimately, I recommend you focus on attracting high-quality links versus buying or creating links. And I mentioned this before, you don't want to buy links. Google will just discount those once they figure out that you were buying them. And then you also don't want to have the mindset that you're just going to go out and create a lot of links, like building a big blog network that then links to your sites. That's going to definitely get you into trouble. All right, before I get to the other steps, I want to take a minute here to go through those two tactics to get ranked in 30 days or less. And now that you understand those first three steps, which are research, relevance, and reputation, this tactic will make sense. This first tactic here is called Piggyback SEO. And what you're going to do is piggyback on another website that already has a high domain authority or a strong reputation. And what you're going to do is publish content on that other website with your keyword in the title of the page as the title of that content. And I'll show you an example. So here's the Piggyback SEO example. This is a search, how to create a Google AdWords campaign. And ranking number 3, at least when I did this search and took a screenshot, is this article here, how to create a profitable Google AdWords campaign. And it's on the website kissmetrics.com. And if you go to that website, you'll find out that I actually wrote that article and then published it on kissmetrics.com. And kissmetrics.com, if you're not familiar, is a well-respected website in this industry. Highly recommend their site. And Google respects their site. It has a strong domain authority, a good reputation. So that step is taken care of. And then with relevance, look at the keyword that I searched, how to create a Google AdWords campaign. The title of this article is how to create a profitable Google AdWords campaign. So that keyword is right in the title. So it's an extremely relevant article, and it's on a website that already has a strong domain authority, and that is why it ranks high in the search results. And here's another example, just to show you it doesn't just rank for that one keyword. If you search Google AdWords campaign, again, when I took this screenshot, it was ranking number 3, just under 2 Google websites. And again, that keyword is in the title of the page, Google AdWords campaign, so it's highly relevant. And the domain where that article is published has a strong domain authority or a good reputation. And that's why it ranks high. And you're probably wondering, well, how does that help you? It's sending traffic to another site. But then if you go to that article actually links to mainstreetroi.com. So what happens is people will search, they'll see this article, they'll click on it because it's ranking high. They'll read the article, and then in the article there are links to drive that traffic over to our website. All right, step number 2, or tactic number 2 here, is related to local SEO. And with local SEO, we're talking about the map that you'll sometimes see on the first page of Google. And then with that, in that map, you'll see little location markers, and then underneath the map, you'll see business information. You'll see the business name, address, and phone number. Well, we're talking with local SEO, we're talking about getting your business to be ranked high in that map result. And some stats here, which I think are important. 30% of mobile searches are local. 76% of mobile nearby searches actually lead to a store visit. So that would be like hardware store nearby, dentist nearby, those types of searches. And then 28% of those nearby searches, those actually lead to purchases. So obviously ranking high in the local results can drastically improve the number of customers and clients that you're getting. And it's ultimately the same 3 steps with a little bit of a twist. We're going to do keyword research to find the keywords we want to rank for. Step 2 is relevance. But with local SEO, you're not actually getting your website to rank. You're actually getting your Google My Business profile to rank high in the search results. So that is the little bit of a twist. So your website does play a role, but Google is ranking your Google My Business profile and showing that information. It's not showing your website. So within Google My Business, you choose categories, and you want to make sure you're choosing all of the relevant categories for your business so that you have the best shot of ranking high for relevant keywords. And then step 3, you want to build up the reputation of your Google My Business profile, and you do that by getting online reviews. So everyone knows what those are. Those are reviews on Google My Business. And then you also want to get what are called citations, which are mentions of your business name, address, and phone number. And the obvious choice for citations is getting listed in a lot of directories. So a lot of business directories. That could be a local directory in your specific location or your city or your town. And it can also mean industry-specific directories. For example, attorneys can get listed in avvo.com. That's just for attorneys. And there are industry-specific directories for lots of different industries. And then there are national directories as well. Here's a local SEO success story. I'm not going to read this. It just explains that Barney here did get ranking within a month, and he actually got a project that came in directly from Google Plus Local, also known as Google My Business. All right, so here's a quick recap. We talked about the 3 R's. We went through 2 tactics to get ranked in 30 days or less. And now let's go through the last 2 R's. And this is my favorite R. This is revenue. This is my favorite because I find that businesses get too bogged down in just trying to rank for a particular keyword. It's very easy to get tunnel vision and think that the goal is to rank high. That's really not the goal. We're trying to drive leads and sales here. So just make sure you're keeping that front and center. And there's 3 key factors when it comes to generating revenue from SEO. First and foremost, you need to have compelling website copy. That's why, again, I recommend you write the copy on your site for your prospective customers, not for Google. I also recommend you have some social proof on your site. And by that, I mean make sure you're displaying testimonials front and center. Just think about your own behavior online, and when you find a new business, you likely want to see if other people have made a purchase with that company and make sure that they had a good experience. So there's just a lot of skepticism online. So that's why every business should have some form of social proof. And then CTA stands for call to action. You want to make sure you have a strong call to action on your site to get visitors to actually take action, whether that's placing a phone call, completing a form, scheduling an appointment, requesting a demo, whatever you want them to do. Just make sure you're displaying that, and it's very clear what you do want them to do. The second factor here is a lead magnet, and this is important because the vast majority of your website visitors, whether it's SEO, advertising, social media, or any other channel, the vast majority of the visitors are not going to be ready to make a purchase when they're on your site. That is just the fact of life. I wish it wasn't the case, but just kind of a rule of thumb here, a good conversion rate on a site could be in the neighborhood of 2%. Now, it could certainly vary. It could definitely be higher. It could definitely be lower, but let's just say 2%. With that in mind, that means 98% of the traffic is coming to your site and not actually making a purchase. And if that is the case, that means 98% of your traffic is coming to your site, leaving, and then you probably have no way to follow up with them. And that is why you need to have a lead magnet. And a lead magnet can be, if you have an e-commerce site, it could just be a coupon that you offer in exchange for an email address. If you don't have an e-commerce site, then you would likely want to have some kind of free guide that you offer in exchange for an email or some kind of tool on your site. And again, the goal there is to capture email addresses that you can then follow up with. And then lastly here, this is related to step 1 in the process, which is keyword research. You want to make sure you're ranking for keywords that have buying intent and are for your prospective customers, and you're actually getting good qualified prospects coming to your site. And lastly, with SEO revenue, I want to encourage everyone to be tracking and using Google Analytics. It's a free tool. Just go to analytics.google.com, get that set up, get it installed on your site, and make sure you set up all the goals correctly, because that will allow you to track all of your SEO traffic and determine how many leads and sales you're generating specifically from SEO. All right, step 5 is responsibility. That really comes down to answering this question: who is responsible for your SEO? Is it you? Is it someone on your team? Or maybe you're outsourcing this to a consultant or an agency. So just determine who is responsible. Also remember that SEO is not a set it and forget it strategy. This is another misconception, that you just need to optimize your site and then it's all set. But there is that one-time, what we call tune-up, and that's really step 1 and step 2, making your site relevant. But then building up your online reputation does require, ongoing work. And I always recommend businesses only delegate SEO after they have a basic understanding. And that was really the goal of this training today. I want to give everyone a basic understanding of SEO so that when you hire someone on your team or decide you want to outsource this, that you know how to actually vet that person and make sure they're not doing anything that will ultimately get you into trouble. So you want to understand SEO best practices so that you can actually delegate this. And I think this is a great picture here. These are not my kids. I found this online. But it's really to illustrate the fact that Google updates, when Google changes their algorithm, you shouldn't be scared of that. You should actually view that as an opportunity, because again, Google makes these updates to get rid of websites that don't belong on the first page of Google, because those sites are threatening their business model. That is ultimately what's happening here. And when Google kicks out a website on the first page, that opens up a spot for a business that is following the best practices to jump up onto the first page of Google. So basically, Google updates are opportunities for businesses that are following the best practices that I just went through. And I promised a special offer, so here it is, and then we'll get to Q&A. So it's three training courses, and these are 90-minute video trainings. The first one is the Complete SEO Tune-Up. That walks through everything that you need to edit on your site to get it, quote, optimized and relevant for your keywords. The local SEO formula, those are all the steps you need to go through to rank high in the local map results of Google. And then the Introduction to SEO Analytics walks through how to set up Google Analytics, how to set it up properly, and then how to report on your key SEO metrics. Again, those are sold on our site at mainstreetroi.com/training. There's a total value of $291, but attendees can get all three of those trainings for just $97, and that's at mainstreetroi.com/SEO bundle. And then if you're not interested in training, I realize a lot of people just don't want to go through training and do it themselves. You want to hire someone. So if that's the case, I want to offer a SEO assessment, and you will see your last poll of the day, or at least from me. And it's a question here: would you like a free SEO assessment? The answer is yes. Maybe I'd like to talk to someone first, in which case we'll follow up with you. And then no, you don't need help at this time. I see that it is now 1 p.m. I will stay on 5 minutes late here to make sure we get to Q&A. So let me close that out. Looks like most people voted. So we'll do Q&A again. You can just type questions into the questions box. The URL is in the upper left corner if you want the SEO bundle. And then a reminder, when I do close this out, there's a brief survey that I'd appreciate you filling out. All right, let me see some questions here. Rich, no questions. That was great. Thank you for the feedback. Let's see, Rob asked a good question. I heard that Google My Business won't allow virtual companies to list themselves. You have to have a physical address. How do you get around this if you're a contractor consultant that works from home? So Rob, you can still list in Google My Business, and you select the box that says that you you serve clients and customers at their location. So there's two options when you create a Google My Business account. There's customers come to me, come to my location. That's one option. And then the other option is I go to my customers to serve them. That might not be the exact phrase, but basically either customers come to you, you go to your customers, and Rob, in your case, as a contractor, you go to your customers. You want to make sure you choose that, in which case Google does not show your address in the search results. So that's the case for most plumbers, fence companies, any of those types of businesses would choose that option. Celeste had another good question. What if your business services multiple states and cities? So if you are in multiple states and cities, let's say you have different offices, you would create a Google My Business account for each of your locations. That's very important. If you don't have offices in multiple locations, you would just have one Google My Business profile. And unfortunately, the way it works, if the way the ranking algorithm works is it does factor in proximity. So people searching near your actual location, they will likely see you ranked higher than someone searching further away from your actual location. That just logically that makes sense. Somebody searching in California probably should not see a plumbing company, a plumber ranking high that services New York. Let's see, a couple more questions. Shay, this is a good question for a web design company. How do you feel about the footer links, follow or no follow? Google does recommend no follow for those links. Gina, hashtags confuse me. What are they for? When do we use them? How do we use them? So that's more of a social media question. So with hashtags, that gets into, for social media, you want to use hashtags so that more people are finding your posts. So if you use popular hashtags and then somebody is in that social media site and they're doing searches and then they search for one of your hashtags, your post would then rank in that search result. So it's basically similar to keywords, but it's a way to give your posts more exposure when people are searching in those social media sites. Let's see, just a couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up. Roberta asked, how many times should a keyword be used on a page to optimize it, and what would be considered stuffing? So that gets into this term called keyword density, when you start talking about how many times a keyword should show up. And I don't recommend you even think about keyword density. That's just going to get you into trouble. Instead, you want to put the keyword absolutely in the title of the page, and you absolutely want to put variations of your keyword phrase in the headers, the H1, H2, H3. And then again, if you're doing this correctly and you have you're optimizing one page on your site for a group of similar keywords, then that page is naturally going to talk about the keyword that you're trying to rank for. So don't worry about it. Don't try to count the number of times you're putting it on the page. Just make sure it's in the title, make sure it's in the headers, and then write naturally and write a really good page from a sales perspective. I really can't emphasize that enough. Rich asked, is Google My Business the same as Google Plus? Basically, yes. They've gone through a lot of iterations. It used to be Google Maps, then it was Google Plus, now it's Google My Business. It's all the same. With that said, you might have multiple listings, in which case you need to contact Google and get them merged, which gets a little bit technical and really outside the scope here. That if you have multiple Google listings, which could be the case if as they've transitioned from Google Maps to Google Plus to Google My Business, a lot of businesses wound up with multiple listings. All you need to do is use their support and tell them which one you actually want to use and get them merged. Let's see here. You're welcome, Paul. And let's see, last question. Haven't even read this yet. Heath said, how much emphasis on great website copy that calls people to action versus website copy that has calls to actions with a ton of keyword dumping? Let me just read that again. I didn't get it the first time. So basically, emphasis here is on great website copy from a sales perspective. This, again, I'm really talking about ranking for buying intent type keywords. If you're trying to rank for a more research intent keyword, which can be a great expansion strategy for SEO, let's say you've done all the work and you're ranking high for your buying intent keywords, it can make sense to then cast a wider net, go after research intent keywords. When you think about it, though, a research intent keyword means someone is looking for more information. So it's going to be more informational type articles that are ranking high for those searches. So you're probably not going to have a sales page just selling your product or service. It's probably going to be an informational page with, and then you can have calls to action on that page to learn more about your product or service. So you could have, at the bottom of the article, some kind of call to action, maybe a light box pop-up with a call to action, maybe on the right sidebar, there's some calls to action. Hopefully that clarified it, Heath, but basically when you're optimizing a page for buying intent keywords, your people are looking to buy, so you might have some information on that page, but you're mostly writing sales copy to sell your product or service. When it's a research intent keyword, it's going to be an informational article, might even have videos on there, and then you need to think about what makes the most sense to put some calls to action for your product or service in that informational piece to then drive leads and sales for your business. All right. With that, we'll wrap it up. Again, if you could please complete that brief survey, I would really appreciate it. And everyone, enjoy the rest of your, Thursday. Have a great weekend. Also enjoy 4th of July if you're in the US. Take care.